You're not broke because you're lazy. You're not broke because you're stupid. You're not even broke because you don't make enough money, though that might also be true. You're broke because somewhere along the way, you picked up a set of habits that feel completely reasonable. Habits that look responsible on the surface. Habits that millions of people share without ever questioning them. And those habits, quiet and invisible and totally normalized, are bleeding your financial future dry every single month. Here's what makes this so insidious. These aren't dramatic mistakes. You're not out here buying yachts or gambling your paycheck away. The habits that are keeping you poor aren't the obvious ones. They're the small ones, the defaults, the things you do because everyone around you does them too. They don't feel like destruction. They feel like normal life. And that's exactly what makes them so effective at keeping you exactly where you are. You work hard. You pay your bills. You're not reckless. And yet, the savings account barely grows. The debt doesn't seem to shrink. The financial goals, the house, the trip, the retirement, the breathing room, stay just out of reach no matter how many months go by. That gap between effort and outcome isn't an accident. It's a pattern. And patterns can be broken, but only once you can see them clearly. This video is going to show you 11 of them. Some of these will feel familiar in an uncomfortable way. Some will sound exactly like the story you've been telling yourself. That discomfort isn't a bad sign. It means you're paying attention. Let's get into it. Habit 1. Automating everything except savings. You've automated your life. The Netflix charge happens automatically. The gym membership you barely use renews without you lifting a finger. Your phone bill, your cloud storage, your streaming services, every single one of them hits your account on a schedule you set once and never thought about again. Systems handle all of it. Smooth, invisible, effortless. But your savings? That you do manually. That you do whenever you remember. That you do with whatever happens to be left over after the month has taken everything it wants from you. This is a fundamental design flaw. You have built a perfect machine for spending on autopilot while forcing savings to fight for whatever scraps remain. The result is predictable. Spending wins every time. The most powerful behavioral insight in personal finance is this: behavior follows architecture. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. When spending is automatic and saving is manual, you've already decided the outcome without realizing it. Here's what a different architecture looks like. The moment your paycheck lands, a transfer fires automatically into a savings account, into a retirement account, into an investment account, before you ever see the money, before your brain registers it as available, before lifestyle has any chance to claim it. You live on what remains. You adjust, you adapt, and the savings happen whether you remember to do them or not. This is called paying yourself first, and it is the single most foundational shift in personal finance. Not the most glamorous, not the most complicated, the most foundational. 10% minimum. Automate it today, not next month, not when you get the raise, today, with whatever you currently earn. The amount matters less than the architecture. Build the system first. Everything else follows. Habit 2. Confusing a good deal with a good decision. The sale notification hits your phone. 40% off. Limited time. Your brain lights up. You feel the pull. You click the link, browse the page, and within 10 minutes, you spent $80 on things you weren't thinking about 20 minutes ago. But you saved $53 off the original prices. That's the number your brain is holding on to. The $53 you didn't spend. The $80 you did spend barely registers. This is one of the oldest tricks in retail psychology, and it works with stunning consistency on people who genuinely believe they're being clever. The logic feels airtight. If something is normally $100 and you pay $60, you saved $40. But here's the reality. You did not save $40. You spent $60. You cannot take the $40 you didn't spend and deposit it anywhere. It doesn't exist. The only money that counts is money that stays in your account. Retailers understand this deeply. They set anchor prices knowing that the anchor does most of the work. They create urgency through countdowns and limited stock warnings. They train you to feel like waiting is the risky choice, like buying now is the smart move. And they are particularly effective on people who have convinced themselves that hunting for deals is a form of financial discipline. It isn't. It's a more sophisticated version of impulse spending dressed up in a responsible costume. The test for whether a purchase is genuinely good is not what it costs compared to the original price. The test is whether you would have bought it at full price, before the sale, before the notification, before the manufactured urgency arrived. If the answer is no, if you only want it because it's discounted, if it wasn't on your radar until the deal appeared, then the discounted price isn't a bargain. It's just a smaller amount of money you didn't need to spend. The best purchase you'll ever make is the one you decided against. Every dollar you don't spend is a dollar you kept 100% of. Habit 3, letting subscriptions multiply without auditing them. You know the big ones, Netflix, Spotify, maybe a gym. But sit down with your last 3 bank statements right now and actually tally every recurring charge, and I promise you'll find things you forgot existed. The meditation app you downloaded during that one stressful week 6 months ago, the software trial you never canceled, the magazine subscription that came bundled with something else, the premium tier of a free app you upgraded once, the cloud storage from a second provider you stopped using. Each one felt justified in the moment. Each one is small enough to ignore. Individually, none of them feel significant. Collectively, they can easily add up to $100, $150, even $200 a month in charges for services you're barely using or actively not using at all. That's $1,200 to $2,400 a year, leaving your account quietly, automatically, without ever putting up a fight. Subscription businesses are engineered to survive your inattention. Free trials require your credit card because the business model depends on a meaningful percentage of people simply forgetting to cancel. Renewal notices are sent to email addresses you never check. The cancel button is buried in 3 submenus because friction prevents cancellation. This isn't conspiracy, it's design, and you can refuse to participate in it. Every 3 months, audit every recurring charge. Ask the same question about each one. If I had to manually renew this today, knowing what I actually use it for, would I? If the answer is anything less than an immediate yes, cancel it. You can always resubscribe. What you can't do is get back the 12 months of payments that slipped past you while you weren't paying attention. Habit 4, buying status instead of value. You spent more on the car than the math supported because of how it would look in the driveway. You bought the brand name version when the generic was functionally identical. You chose the neighborhood that broadcast a lifestyle rather than the one that fit your actual budget. You upgraded the phone that still worked fine because last year's model started feeling embarrassing at the table. None of this was purely practical. It was social. It was about the story you tell other people and yourself about who you are and how you're doing. Social signaling through spending is human and understandable. The problem is that it is extraordinarily expensive and it produces nothing. The car payment that stretches your budget to impress people who don't actually think about your car as much as you imagine they do. The apartment upgrade that signals success while draining the savings that would have produced actual success. The status purchase that feels like investment but functions as performance. Here is the compounding cruelty of status spending. It has no finish line. There is always a newer model, a more exclusive neighborhood, a more impressive version of whatever you just bought. Every upgrade resets your baseline and produces a new gap between where you are and where the next level sits. You cannot spend your way into security by spending to appear secure. Wealthy people, actually wealthy, not merely appearing wealthy, have a remarkably consistent habit. They don't care very much about appearing wealthy. They drive ordinary cars. They live in houses they can comfortably afford. They buy quality where quality matters functionally and ignore prestige where it's purely performative. They understand that every dollar spent on looking rich is a dollar not working toward actually being rich. Those are 2 very different destinations. What you drive to get there matters. Habit 5, treating debt as normal and permanent. The balance on the credit card has just always been there. You pay what you can when you can. It goes up some months, comes down a little in others. There's a vague intention to pay it off someday, but someday never quite arrives. And carrying a balance has started to feel less like a problem and more like a feature of adult life. Almost everyone you know does it. Over 60% of Americans carry credit card debt. Average balances exceed $5,000. Average interest rates sit above 20% annually. This means that for a $5,000 balance with minimum payments, you'll spend years paying it down while the bank collects thousands of dollars in interest charges. Money that produces nothing for you. Money that evaporates completely. Money that is simply the cost of owing money. The normalization of debt is one of the most expensive cultural stories we've inherited. When debt becomes background noise, it stops triggering the urgency it deserves. You stop treating it like the wealth-destroying machine it actually is and start treating it like wallpaper. You stop attacking it because attacking feels like deprivation, and carrying it feels like just how things are. This is a choice. Debt is not weather. You are not powerless against it. But eliminating it requires treating it with the hostility it earns, not accepting it, not accommodating it, not working around it indefinitely. Pick the smallest balance and throw everything available at it. When it's gone, redirect that payment to the next one. The avalanche method, the snowball method, pick whichever keeps you motivated, but pick one and pursue it with the same urgency you'd give to any genuine emergency. Because financially, it is one. It just moves slowly enough that you stopped treating it that way. Habit 6, upgrading your lifestyle before securing your foundation. The promotion came through. More money, finally. You've been waiting for this. You've been careful and patient, and now there's room to breathe. Room to enjoy things a little. So the apartment gets upgraded, the car gets upgraded, the restaurants get nicer, the wardrobe gets refreshed, the vacations get longer. You deserve it. You worked for it. You earned the upgrade. 6 months later, something feels wrong. You're making more than you've ever made, and you feel exactly as financially stressed as you did before. The bank balance looks the same. The savings still don't move. The goals are still out of reach. You're running faster than ever and still standing in the same place. This is lifestyle inflation. Your expenses expanded to consume the raise almost instantly, transforming every extra dollar from potential freedom into new, permanent obligation. The upgraded apartment is now a fixed cost. The nicer car is now a monthly payment you're locked into. The restaurants are now the baseline. The lifestyle that felt like a reward has become a floor you can't easily descend below without it feeling like failure. The raise was supposed to change your financial trajectory. Instead, it changed your spending level, and the trajectory stayed exactly the same. Every time your income rises, the first question should not be, what can I afford now? It should be, how much of this increase goes directly toward my financial foundation before lifestyle sees any of it? When a raise arrives, a healthy target is putting at least 50% of the increase into savings or debt elimination before lifestyle absorbs a single dollar of it. Upgrade slowly, deliberately, after the foundation is secure. The reward for discipline isn't deprivation. It's actual freedom, which is far better than the performance of it. Habit 7. Making financial decisions based on feelings, not numbers. You knew the car payment was going to be tight, but it felt right. You felt ready to move into the new apartment before the numbers truly supported it. You invested in that thing your friend was excited about because the energy in the room was electric, and you didn't want to be the skeptic. You kept a gym membership for 8 months after you stopped going because canceling felt like admitting defeat. Financial decisions made from feelings cost a premium every single time. This isn't about suppressing all emotion. Emotions carry real information, and ignoring them completely is its own kind of error. It's about the sequence. Feel first, then calculate, then decide. Not feel, decide, and justify the numbers afterward. The justification after the fact move is extraordinarily common. You want the thing, so you find the math that makes it look reasonable, ignoring the math that doesn't, until the decision feels responsible. Months later, the thing you justified is straining your budget in ways you didn't let yourself see clearly before you bought. Run the numbers before the emotion closes the door. Not hypothetical optimistic numbers, realistic ones. If this purchase requires everything to go right to be affordable, it isn't affordable. If you're building a case for why you can manage it, rather than simply seeing that you can, that case is a red flag wearing the costume of a plan. The goal is financial decisions you can defend, not just to yourself in a motivated moment, but to your future self looking back at a bank statement 3 months later. That future self is going to tell you the truth. Give them something worth finding. Habit 8, relying on willpower instead of systems. Every Sunday, you feel motivated. You're going to track every expense this week. You're going to meal prep. You're going to transfer money to savings the second you get paid. You're going to say no to the unnecessary spending and yes to the future you're building. The intention is real. You mean it. By Wednesday, it's eroded. By Friday, it's gone. Not because you're weak, because willpower is a finite resource that depletes under the daily pressure of decisions, stress, fatigue, and social friction. And you built a financial strategy that depends on it being infinite. Willpower-dependent financial behavior looks like this: budgeting only when you remember to look at the spreadsheet, saving only when you manually move the money, avoiding impulse purchases only when you're in the right mental state, staying out of the apps that trigger spending only when you have the discipline to resist them. Every link in this chain is a point of failure, and daily life creates plenty of pressure on every link. Systems remove the link. Automate the savings transfer. The decision happens once, not monthly. Unsubscribe from retail marketing emails. The temptation doesn't arrive in the first place. Use a separate spending account with a capped balance. The money to overspend literally isn't available. Set up bills on autopay. The on-time payment happens whether you remembered or not. Every habit you can convert from willpower dependent to system dependent is a habit that stops requiring your attention and starts just happening correctly by default. Your willpower is better spent on decisions that genuinely require it. Good financial architecture means fewer of your decisions require it at all. Habit 9, never talking about money with anyone. Money is the one topic that remains almost completely off limits in polite conversation. You can discuss relationships, health, politics, religion, all of it easier than asking a colleague what they earn or telling a friend you're working on getting out of debt. The silence around money is so thick and so universal that most people navigate their entire financial lives without ever comparing notes, asking for advice, or admitting to struggle. And the silence costs you enormously. When you don't talk about money, you stay in the dark about what's normal and what's possible. You don't know that your colleague with the same job title negotiated a 20% higher salary because you both assumed the conversation was off limits. You don't know that the friend you think of as just naturally doing well is carrying $40,000 in debt behind a very convincing facade. You don't know that the financial strategy you think is responsible has a blind spot that someone 20 minutes into a real conversation could have shown you 5 years ago. You don't have to broadcast your finances to the world, but finding 1 or 2 people, a friend, a partner, a financial advisor, an online community of people with similar goals, and actually talking honestly about money is one of the highest leverage things you can do for your financial life. You stop feeling alone in the struggle. You get information you couldn't access through silence. You become accountable in ways that make the goals feel real rather than abstract. The shame that surrounds money conversations keeps people isolated inside their own blind spots indefinitely. Break the silence, even just a little. The information on the other side of that conversation is worth it. Habit 10, treating financial education as optional. You'll spend 4 hours watching a documentary series without a second thought. You'll spend 2 hours scrolling without anything to show for it. You'll spend real money and real time on entertainment, on experiences, on almost everything. But sit down for 2 hours to genuinely learn how money works? That feels like homework. That feels like something you'll get to eventually. Something for people who are already good at this stuff. Financial illiteracy is the most expensive thing most people own. It is the root of every other habit on this list. You pay yourself last because you weren't taught to do otherwise. You carry credit card debt because no one showed you the true cost of compound interest working against you. You avoid investing because the vocabulary feels foreign and the risk feels overwhelming, and nobody ever broke it down in terms that made it accessible. You make emotional financial decisions because you don't have a framework of knowledge to check yourself against. The financial system is not designed to explain itself to you. Credit card agreements bury the important numbers. Investment fees are disclosed in documents engineered not to be read. Tax advantages sit unused by millions of people who simply didn't know to ask. The gap between what you know and what you don't isn't neutral. It is actively expensive in direct fees, missed opportunities, preventable debt, and compounding losses over decades. An hour a week for 6 months spent on genuine financial education, books, quality podcasts, reputable websites, conversations with advisors, will pay you back at a rate almost nothing else in your life can match. This isn't about becoming a financial expert. It's about knowing enough to stop making the most predictable, most preventable, most costly mistakes. Most of the damage isn't from exotic risk. It's from basic things nobody told you about and you never thought to ask. Habit 11. Living without a written plan. You have intentions. You know you should save more. You know the debt needs to go down. You know you want to own a home someday, or retire at a reasonable age, or just stop feeling the low-grade anxiety of not knowing where things stand. You think about these things regularly. They feel important to you. But you don't have a written plan. No specific numbers, no timeline, no monthly targets, no written allocation for what each dollar is supposed to accomplish. The goals exist as a vague feeling, the desire for a better financial situation, rather than a specific destination with a route mapped to it. A feeling is not a plan. A feeling is where a plan starts. Without the specifics, goals stay in the aspirational category indefinitely. You can't measure progress towards something you haven't defined. You can't adjust strategy when you haven't decided on one. You can't celebrate wins when you don't know what winning looks like. A written financial plan does not have to be complicated. It needs 5 things: what comes in each month, what goes out and where, what you owe and to whom, what you're building toward and when, and what changes you're making starting now. That's it. 1 page, a spreadsheet, a notes app. The format doesn't matter. The specificity does. When the plan is written, everything changes. The goals feel real because they've been translated from feeling into math. The monthly actions have clarity. You know whether you're on track or off it. The decisions have a framework. This purchase either fits the plan or it doesn't. Vagueness is where financial intentions go to die quietly. A written plan is how they survive. Putting it all together. Every habit on this list has the same DNA, a gap between what you intend and what your systems actually produce. A default behavior that nobody taught you to question. A normalized pattern that feels responsible because everyone around you does it too. A cost that is invisible in any given month and catastrophic across the years. None of these are character flaws. They are patterns. And patterns, once you can see them, can be interrupted and replaced with something that serves you instead of draining you. You don't fix all 11 at once. You don't have to. Pick the one that hit hardest, the one you recognized yourself in most clearly, and start there. Build the system that removes the willpower requirement. Automate the behavior you want. Measure what's actually happening. Talk to someone about it. Learn one thing you didn't know before this week. Financial momentum is real. One habit changed makes the next one more possible. One system that works correctly makes the next system easier to build. 1 month of knowing exactly where your money is going makes the months that follow clearer. The compounding that wrecks people when it works against them is the same compounding that builds people up when it works for them. You just have to point it in the right direction. The habits that got you here won't get you there. That's not a criticism, it's just true. What you do with that truth is entirely up to you. Start today.